Hey, good morning, everybody. Actually, good afternoon, everybody. It's Jasvinder, and back again with another dose of wisdom, inspiration, and motivation. And today's passage comes from the classic Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So, this book, if you're not familiar with it, is actually a manual for your mindset. It's a textbook that comprehensively and systematically covers how to attract positive things into your life by becoming a more positive person. When I first heard about this book, I grew up in Berkeley, and Berkeley is a very the culture there is what I would call very anti-corporate, very anti-big business, and a title like Think and Grow Rich. I was taught that money isn't everything. The people who go for money are shallow, superficial, unhappy, whatever. And really, what he's talking about in this title, Think and Grow Rich, is rich in abundance, positivity, whether it's in your finances, your relationships, your health, etc. And an abundance of one usually means an abundance in the other areas if someone's truly got their head screwed on right. So it's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. So today's passage comes from the end of his chapter on what's called autosuggestion or self-talk. Now remember, this talk is about your subconscious mind. So what he says right here is, many philosophers have made the statement that man is the master of his own earthly destiny, but most of them have failed to say why he is the master. The reason that man may be the master of his own earthly status, and especially his financial status, is thoroughly explained in this chapter. Now here it is. Man may become the master of himself and of his environment because he has the power to influence his own subconscious mind. So to understand the gravity of this statement, what I want to do is very briefly summarize what the subconscious mind is, how it works, and how it can be influenced. And to explain the subconscious mind properly, we have to go back to the field of biology, actually to go back to the sciences to give you the most coherent breakdown of this. So really, first of all, you have to understand that the difference between a reptile and a mammal. Now, you might be surprised that we're going to something that rudimentary, but first of all, you are a mammal. I hope you knew that. Just kidding around here. But reptiles are they hatch from an egg, and what happens? What people know about reptiles is they are not raised by their mothers or by a group of other animals of their species. They come out of an egg and off they go. So they don't need any kind of parenting. Why is that? Because their brains they're born with all the programming they need to survive already present in their brains. They don't need to be taught anything, they just know. Now those behaviors are limited in nature, but they're pre-programmed. So the difference between a reptile and a mammal, mammals only know what they've been taught. They're learners by nature, genetically programmed to be learners. So when a mammal is born, whether it's a tiger or a person or an ape or whatever it is, their mother typically is going to bring it up, show it how to live, and then at some point that relationship is cut off and that animal has to go off and survive on its own. So why is this relevant to you? Because being a mammal, you go through a very early phase in your life, your infancy and your very early childhood, somewhere between being born and your first 3 years, where you're wide open to being programmed by the elements in your immediate surroundings, your parents, and really anything that comes in through the gateways of your 5 senses. And these form the basis of who you believe yourself to be, what you think the world is, the kind of all your beliefs about yourself and the world, and how you function and survive in that world. So this obviously is incredibly important. You've heard the expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that's because, well, of course you can teach an old dog new tricks, but when it's early on in your life, you're this blank slate. what in Taoism is called the uncarved block. And what happens is you are subject to environmental conditioning, whether it's deliberate or not deliberate, by the part of whoever's around you. A lot of the things that you took into your mind were not even meant to be put in there. Of course, your parenting has a huge effect on, it should be fairly deliberate. I'm a parent. Most of the parenting that I do is intentional. But a lot of the things that your parents do in front of you, they're not thinking about the fact that you're there, but it's going in. It's going in. And when it goes in, your subconscious mind is wide open, because biologically you are designed to learn everything you need to know as early on in life as possible. And then what happens is it gets sealed off at around somewhere between the ages of 3 and 5. And I'm not a scientist myself, so if you know better, please post in comments exactly when that cutoff point is. But what happens is you have a set line right here beneath which is this vessel of beliefs, attitudes, and they tell you who you are, what you do, how you function in the world. Got it? So this is basically so this is your self-image. It's your self-image, and after that point, any changes in those subconscious patterns require a very intense effort, because if you want to change those subconscious patterns, you're changing the very rules that you're living by in order to survive in this world. So just imagine, think about if our species would survive, if it was so easy to rewrite our responses to things like intense cold, intense heat, the smell of something burning, the smell of rotting food. Imagine if you didn't know that rotting food meant don't eat it. Well, you might get really sick and you could die, right? So these patterns are in place for your survival. So understand that when you're working with them, and be patient. Your subconscious mind, technically speaking, is your limbic brain. The limbic brain has no capacity, your winning formula of sorts, your survival techniques from Yum Yum Foodie. Exactly. Well, it's the rules that you live by. So your limbic brain has no capacity to process language. Now, this is very important. It can only process images, and it only responds to intense emotions. Because when you're an infant, your learning abilities are not dependent on your linguistic capacity. Again, imagine the precarity of the survival of our species if your survival depended on verbal comprehension. No, it has to do with what you see and how you feel about it. That tells you everything. So your limbic brain, your subconscious mind, cannot process language. That's governed by the frontal lobe of your brain. Your frontal lobe is what does language, and it holds information. But your subconscious mind, that actually is in control of who you are and what you do, is only thinking in terms of emotions and images. So why is this important? Because once you get past a certain age in life and those subconscious patterns are set, you can continue to absorb all kinds of information through your conscious mind. In a linguistic form, whatever you read in school, whatever friends you meet who share ideas with you, and in many cases, essentially the fundamental hypocrisy that most people are prone to is they know so many things, but they don't do them. Well, it's really from no fault of their own. It's a simple ignorance of the basic function of the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. The subconscious mind does not respond to all that information being taken into your conscious mind because it can't comprehend language. It only responds to emotions. So if you want to change a pattern in your subconscious mind, you have to approach things very differently than academic learning. You have to approach it from the point of view of, I understand that these are survival instincts that are set in place and they can only be accessed through images and emotions. Whatever it is, and I'll give you an example because we've been pretty abstract so far. You know, when I was in 3rd grade, we had a project, we had like a long paper we had to write. I went to sort of a pretty hard elementary school, and we had to write a long paper about a made-up country. And I brought in this assignment on the day that it was due. I brought it in on time, but I forgot to put a cover page on it, like a cover, illustrated cover. And what happened was the teacher took one look at it and just grabbed it off my desk and and said, "This is utter garbage," and tore it up into a million pieces right there in front of me. I'm not exaggerating. This was, can you imagine, I'm sure you can understand, this was extremely traumatizing for me at that age. And I just felt terrible. I was humiliated in front of my classmates. I cried my eyes out. I just felt terrible. So it was yeah, classy, exactly, right? Real classy lady. I won't give her name because, you know, you might get some vigilante out there, you know, so it's not worth it. But, so what happened? That was a very intense emotion, and it was something that happened in front of my eyes. So these are images and emotions, very intense. And what did I learn from that as an impressionable third grader? No, it wasn't Kim Davis. That's funny. No, it wasn't Kim Davis, Eddie. But you know what happened was, in my ignorance or my lack of wisdom, what I gleaned from that experience is that it doesn't matter if you put in the work or not. People are going to judge you for totally superficial reasons. So who cares if you do the work anyway? And it made it very hard for me to really perform my best and accomplish things for a long time after that. I actually dropped out of college at one point in my life because of this deep-seated belief that teachers were, scary, dangerous people who were going to make you feel bad. So when I wasn't living up to the challenge of the assignment, I felt all that humiliation and anger and pain from back in third grade. And it was only after I was introduced to the practice of meditation and deliberately working with my subconscious that I went back. And I went back to school. I graduated with almost a 4.0 GPA. And that's not to toot my own horn, but it's to say that if you let your subconscious patterns dictate the course of your life, I mean, just imagine if I had never corrected that. Well, who knows how my life would have turned out. I can tell you right now it would be of a much poorer quality than when I actually learned how to influence my subconscious. So the subconscious mind can be influenced by holding an image of the positive change that you want, whether it's doing better in school, having a better partner in a relationship, a picture of your income, a picture of your health, whatever it is. You have to become highly emotionalized with it. It's not so important to read books, but what is important, I can tell you right now, is that you become highly emotionally involved, because your subconscious mind is going to respond. Thanks for the hearts, that's cute. Your subconscious mind will be responsive to any idea that is repeatedly impressed upon it with intense emotion. And it'll take time to break through that barrier because you're rewriting your survival mechanisms. But you do have the power to do that, because the difference between a human being and other mammals is that you're not simply dependent on whatever the quality of parenting you received as a child. You have the power to teach yourself whatever you think it is that you're missing and that you need to learn. So that's all for today. It's a vast topic. We can't really do it justice in this setting. Please contact me through Twitter at J_S_Khalsa, Khalsa, for more information about one-on-one coaching and all that good stuff. Thanks, you guys. Hope this has inspired you and served you. And until tomorrow, have a good day, guys. All the best.